Today I'm going to show you how I make these ropes. Most of the design is done in ink, but I will show you how to use some markers just to add a little color to it. So what I have here, this is in my 100-day project. So I ended up doing a couple of these. So let me show you the other one. And this one I didn't bother to add any color, I was just experimenting. So this can get a little tricky if those ropes are too close together. Just like these actually took quite a bit of effort to make sure I didn't get them too messed up. So in the example that I'm going to show you today, I'm going to make sure to simplify it. So it is going to look a little different than these that you see here. It's going to be just a little bit simpler so that you can just get the hang of it, and then you can experiment later once you really see how it's put together. So I'm just going to get started with a pencil. And with that pencil, I'm going to really slowly make a line, and I'm just going to start making some loops. And now the point here is to make sure that I don't make any lines that are too close together. So you'll notice I'm carefully trying to move around, and they are overlapping and crossing over each other, but I don't want any spots that are too busy. So I'm just moving it around, and I think about here I need to stop because it's getting kind of crowded. Now I do have this spot over here on the left near the bottom, so I'm just going to add a little bit more just because I don't want that space to be empty. So I'm just going to add a little loop. And that's good enough for right there. So now I'm going to come in with the pen, and I'm going to start over here on this side. And the very first thing I want to do is I'm going to mark these two lines right here because I want that first part of the rope to go under, right there. You could choose it going over or under, it doesn't matter. I'm just going with under. So that way you'll notice that over the next line it went right over it, and then it went under again. So I'm going to alternate this way. Notice this next one, it's just going to go over it, and that way naturally the next time it hits the next piece of rope it goes under. So now here it's going to go over, and then I'm going to stop because it's going to go under. So right there. I'm going to put a couple of lines for that next part of the rope right there. Now I'm just going to follow the line again. Notice naturally it goes from under and now it goes over. So it's just going to continue alternating this way. It's going to go over, then under, right here. The next one is going to go over, right there. So you notice I paused just to check. And then I just continue because now I remember that it is going to go over. This one is going to go under. So you want to take your time when you're doing this part. So make sure that you're keeping an eye on whether you're going over or under, and then you should be fine. So notice this next one is going to go over, and then naturally it goes under the next time. So it will keep track on its own in a way. And so if you ever mess up and you accidentally go the wrong way, don't worry about it, just keep going. Just pick back up on the next one and keep going. You won't even notice when you're done with the drawing. So right now this is just the fun part of it. Just keeping track of whether it goes over or it goes under. So you can see in this part, this is exactly why I showed you that if you're just getting started trying this kind of design out, you don't want to crowd the lines too much. If they get really crowded, it's going to get very difficult to keep track of all of these lines. And so for me, because I want it to be fun, I'm just making sure that there's plenty of space there to play with. And then that way, if I want to afterwards, when I'm done, I can add other designs in the background. So you notice it's going under right now. On the next one, see, magically it just fits. The next one goes over. And then the next one goes under, and the next one goes over. So if you're careful and you are just paying attention to whether it goes over or under, it should always match. If you notice that it ever doesn't, like I said, just keep going. You just consider that your practice run, and then you can try again with your next drawing. So here you see it went over, and now it goes under. And the next one fits perfectly. It's going to go over again. The next one, it will go under. And then notice it goes over again. And it's really satisfying just watching the way it fits. It went under and now it's going to go over, and every time it just makes sense. And so as you're keeping track of those lines, like I said, don't stress out too much about it. Just notice that if you made a mistake, you can just try again with the next one. And it looks like I only have a few left here, so let's see if it's going to meet up properly. So right here it's going to go under and over again. That's pretty nice. And then it goes under. So you'll notice the next one is going to go over. It's already there. So we're just going to follow that line. And then under. And it looks like the last few match up pretty nicely. It's going to go under and then over one last time. And then we can just end this rope or yarn right here. Right, so that's pretty good. So after I clean it up, I've decided to come in with a pen of a different color. You don't have to do this. It's perfectly fine to come in with the black pen still, but I wanted you to be able to see what I'm doing. And unfortunately, my hand is gets in the way a little bit. But all I'm really doing right here is I'm just adding these little angled lines, and they're a little wavy, so they're almost like the letter S. You're welcome to do them nice and straight and flat. It's going to look just a little different, and that's fine. So these lines here just make it look like it's twisting around. And so you'll notice I'm just following it. So it's always going in that same direction. And all I'm doing is rotating the paper just so I can follow the shape of the rope. And I'm just going to continue that way. At this point, if you notice that any of your lines don't really meet up, you can fix them. I know I left some of them because I feel like it doesn't have to be too exact. So I'm not really worried about that. So I'm just going to continue adding some more of those lines there. It might be nice too if you want to change the color, almost like the variegated yarn that changes colors. It might look really interesting that way with different colors in it. But I think for me, I just wanted to use the one color. And just kind of see what it looks like the whole way through with just the purple. So something that I do want to do, because this paper that I'm working on right now is a mixed media paper that I'm using to make my journals right now. Usually I use a type of cardstock or a cover stock, and that works really well for me, but because I'm going to start experimenting with paint and watercolor and other things like that, I did get this paper, and so it should be able to help me with that. And so I'm testing it out. So in order to do that, I'm going to grab a marker in a little bit, and it's kind of water-based, almost like a watercolor marker. And I'm going to try it out in just a bit, just to see if the paper can handle it. Sometimes when I use the cardstock, it does occasionally bleed through, especially if I'm using water or any kind of wet medium. So let's take a look. And of course, I decided to grab the most obnoxious pink that I had. I don't use it very often. Decided to give it a go this time. And so if you're going to color your rope, don't be afraid to color it in a pretty vibrant or kind of solid color. I notice that often when I get markers or any kind of pens like these, the colors are really, really vibrant. They almost look too dark. And that can be kind of annoying, but I'm going to show you in a second something that you can do to help remedy that. So if you notice that you used a blue that was too dark and you just don't like it, it kind of takes over the whole picture. Just like this obnoxious pink that I've got here. Now don't get me wrong, I do love pink. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm using the white charcoal pencil to add a highlight here. So you'll notice I'm just going down the very center of each segment. I don't quite go to the edge, but on the edge I do add just a tiny little shadow. And little by little, as I add more segments of this white charcoal, it does soften the pink a little. And of course it adds that highlight. It makes it not look so flat anymore. This is definitely one of my favorite ways to add highlights to shapes right now. I'm beginning to experiment with paint a little, mostly with gouache and with a few paint markers, just to see. And it is a little different, so I'm going to experiment with it just a little further before I make a few videos for you guys, just so you can see kind of how my experiments are turning out. But right now for me, this pencil works great. And so at this one you can really see the difference. Those segments that still look really flat, and then those that don't. They're really starting to come out and look like they're layered on top of each other. So right here I'm just about coming to the end, doing those last couple of segments. I think the other thing that I really like about this white charcoal is that it works up really quickly. I don't have to fuss with it too much. As long as I'm not working over anything that can't take the pencil. I think I've mentioned before that if you use colored pencils, this white charcoal will not work on top of that. But if you use markers, it should be fine. So there you have it. That's what it looks like with the nice little highlights and a few shadows. So I hope you give this a try. It can be a little challenging, but just be patient with yourself and just keep practicing. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'm glad that you were here and you joined me. And I hope you have an excellent day today.